Everyone, thanks for joining. So we're just waiting for a few more people to join. So we're a few minutes in. So we have Salva sir here with us today. So very soon he will be greeting you in his very iconic manner. So get yourself ready. A very interesting session today. Salva sir and Praveen sir is also here with us today. So thank you so much for joining. We'll be beginning in just a minute. So am I able to? Okay. Uh, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you, Dhruv. I can hear you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right, yes. So, welcome to the second module of the IBC Continuous Education Program. So, we went through the first module in the past week, and it was quite interesting a journey in that week. So, today we'll be going in more detail with Selva sir. So, we'll be having an introduction to Rust, Hello World, and a lot of other in-depth technical topics. So I think without wasting any further time, I'd like to give Salva sir the stage. Welcome, sir. Nice to have you with us again.
Thank you, Dhruv, for the introduction. Praveen sir, would you like to add something before we start the module?
No, no, absolutely. It's wonderful to have you, Selva. Good evening, guys. My name is Praveen Thakur, and I am hoping that I have met most of you. I have spoken to most of you. Today is the start of Module 2, which is in-depth technical series of technical sessions. Now, let me take a minute or so to kind of give you a perspective of what we are trying to do. In the module 1, we kind of went over blockchain world, introduction, and some of the intricacies of functioning of the blockchain, which I had covered myself. And in session 2, Selva covered the essentials of becoming a Web3 developer. What exactly does it take? What all do you really need to be focusing on to become an effective Web3 developer? And then in the third session, we had our team, Priscilla, speak to you and give you an idea about various projects which are there for you to build, which are sponsored by key blockchain projects in the industry. Now, having got a perspective of these three, dimensions, the session that starts today is basically, going to be giving you, perfect foundation. I would say the a perfect foundation to kind of build your technical skills. Having said that, the topics, maybe familiar to someone, some people may really be not so aware of. But my only request to all of you is that, guys, we are taking a lot of time and a lot of energy in making these things happen for you. So Selva sir will be kind of course, teaching you the technicalities here, but you please follow his instructions. Whatever he asks you to do, please do that. Otherwise, what happens that your learning will not be very effective. And in the whole process, we definitely would have so many quizzes for you, just so you know, so that we are always understanding, to what level of expertise you are building in the process based on what you are being taught. And at the end of in the 9-day sessions that we are talking about, I am 100% sure that you will really would have built a solid foundation in Rust and Substrate, which is the framework for Polkadot. But we will need, as I always tell all of you, that we will need reciprocation from you, so that your learning is significant, right? So please follow the instructions that Selva sir is giving you during this process. And whatever time and energy you are spending here, you definitely deserve an outcome for that. And for that, it just will not help if you come and attend these sessions. You will have to do some work, groundwork, and then you will be on a good path. So with these things, Selva sir, I think let's start the session, and I hope all the participants great learning curve, of course, being with you.
Yeah, Praveen sir. Okay. So let us start, guys. So first of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So this module 2 is going to be a power-packed module. Therefore, you have to be, you know, you have to come to pace with what is going on, because you see, the learning process goes on and on and on and on. It's a never-ending process. But then, in order to meet the deadlines, we have to finish some of our stuff that we have to do, okay, before we can get into the development of our project. Okay. So I guess many of you would have met me on the floor in Hyderabad, and now in this module we are going to first of all see a lot of REST development, how it is done, what are the intricacies of the language. Followed by that, we'll be spending 3 to 4 sessions on the substrate and the Polkadot ecosystem, the substrate framework, how you do development, and how you write contracts. And all along, you will also be having quizzes interspersed with that, so you will have to attend all of them. As Praveen sir mentioned, so you have to attain a certain grade in order to be able to obtain the certificate of completion. And again, each and every day counts, so you have to attend each and every session in order to be eligible for the certificate as well. Okay, so let us start, guys. So let me present my screen.
While we start, guys, just a quick note: don't hesitate to ask questions. The Q&A tab is always open. So, if you have any questions, if you wish to speak, make sure you ping us, you message us. We'll set that option.
Want to hear me?
Yes, yes, sir, we can hear you.
What about my screen? Is it
No, screen is not visible. It was sharing a minute ago. Now we can't see.
okay? Okay. I just stop and reshare it. Actually connecting to the server and it's not able to connect. I just reloaded the page. Let me share it. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, yes, we can see.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, so a couple of things. I believe all of you have your development environment set up, Rust development environment. So the first few sessions are going to be purely focused on Rust. And in case if you do not have it installed, couple of things you have to do that. So I'm just going to give a very fast walkthrough. So one is go to the rust-lang.org site, and you can look into the install directions. Okay, you have to download the rust -init. So if yours is a 64-bit machine, then in that case download this and run it, and that will do all the rust installation for you. Okay, you don't have to do anything else. However, remember, this may require Visual Studio C++ build tools. This does because Rust has dependencies on Visual C++ libraries on Windows. So if you click on this link, Visual C++ build tools, you can go in here. You can just download the build tools and you can install it. So you can just click on this and we add build tools. So this is one way. Okay. So what it recommends is Visual Studio C++ build tools. You can just run the installer and you can install all the build tools. Okay, so if you are on Linux, then in that case, just this command, this curl command, okay, this entire thing, just copy it and put it in the Mac OS, or you can use it on Linux as well. That will do the installation. You don't have to do any separate, build tool instance because they are all part of the standard Linux and Mac OS system. So you don't have to worry about that at all. On Windows, you do have a dependency on the Visual C++ build. Okay, here's one thing. The other thing is, if you don't have it installed, you can always go to the playground. Okay, there is a playground available. So this is a Rust playground wherein you can actually type your code, and that in turn will give you all this. Say for instance, I just write some code. I'll just size a bit, okay. And so let's say and macro and say and you can just run it right away. You run it, shows the execution in progress. But then again, for using the playground, you need a stable internet connection. So you see there, here is the output. So in case if you have not yet installed Rust, you can code along with me using the Rust playground. Okay, so this is a nice tool to have, which you can utilize. Okay. And as far as the learning part is concerned, so if you go to the learn link in here, okay, so here is you have the read the book. So this is the Rust book, and there is also Rust by example. So these are the two standard references which you should be using. And in fact, I'm going to use this only for the purpose of teaching you. Okay. So here are all the different types of things that you can possibly do. Okay. So this is Rust by example. But I would recommend that you go to Rust programming language. This is a Rust book available in PDF format also. I think you can find it somewhere. And then in here, if you see, the installation instructions are neatly given in there, so you can follow through if you have not installed it yet. Okay, and then we go to our first hello world. Now, when you do the installation, you can actually get all the information about the installation also. So Rust C is your compiler. Okay, right, and Rust Up is the tool that actually installs all your tool chain for doing the Rust development. Okay, right. So what you need to do is, and also for the IDE, I'm going to use the Visual Studio Code. You can go to code.visualstudio.com and you can download it for your platform and install that. I do have a couple of extensions installed which help me with the Rust development. That also we will see a little later. Okay. Right. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put up in the Q&A. Okay. It's very essential that you keep asking questions in case if you are not able to follow along at any point in time. Okay. And another thing is, I see that people are still joining almost 24 minutes into the session. Please make it a point that you join at least a couple of minutes before the meeting starts. Okay, you don't lose any information. Anyway, so in case if you do so, you can always go back to the recording, which will be made available to you, and you can refer to that. Right? Okay. So first thing first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up my command prompt window. And if you are on Linux, then obviously you can open up your terminal. Okay. Now, in the command prompt, so initial Rust we will do. We can do it on any platform, but for the substrate development, we'll be using Linux. So you will need a virtual machine, or you can always create a virtual machine in AWS. Have a free account created, and you can work there also, in case if you want to do so. Right. So here I have actually created. Okay. So the first thing is I'm going to create a new directory, IBC CEP, continuous execution program, and I will cd into it. So if I see the directory right now, this is empty. Now what I want to do is I want to create a simple Rust file, and you don't need an entire IDE. You can simply use Notepad also to do that. Okay, so you can do that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up Notepad. I know this is the worst tool actually to be using. Okay, but yeah, so for us it's good enough. And in here I'll just create a function name, and I'll have a punchline. Say hello Rust. And I save this. So when you save this, okay, okay, I'll do one. Different way of doing it. I'll just say Notepad, and I'll create a new file. Call it as hello rust.rs. Okay, Rust files always end with the .rs extension. It says, do you want to create a new file? I'll say yes, and I'll create a function name. And Rust, and I'll save this. So now if I go back to my command prompt window and see the directory, I can see that hello Rust is there. And you can check the content. So on in the command prompt window, you have the command called type, and then give hello rust.rst. So it will show you the content of the file. So the first thing what you need to do is you have to compile the code. So you have to compile the code. You have the Rust C. So a couple of things we do is that we use a couple of tools there. So Rust C -version will give you the version of your Rust compiler 1.64. And as a project build tool, we have something called as cargo. Cargo -version that will give you the cargo version 64. Okay, cool. This is the latest one. And in case if you want to update your tool chain, you can always use Rust up. Okay, and you can check what it can do by using rust-up-help. You can say show, update, check, default, toolchain, target, blah, 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 all this. Okay. It's all very neatly explained in the Rust book also. So rust-up-help book to learn Rust. So you can open up that out. So if you want to update your Rust installation, all you need to do is simply say rust-up update. Okay. And it will download the newer version of Cargo and also the libraries required, and it will do that. Okay. Doesn't take much time though. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another command prompt window. So I'll just close this for now, and I'll do an update offline later on. Right. So okay. So Rust key, and then you give the file name hello rust.rsp to compile. So when you run this, it's compiled. If there are no errors, you'll get the command prompt. If you get any output, it means that there are some errors or warnings. Okay. So now if you see the directory, you'll find that you see hello rust.exe has been created. Hello rust pdb. This is the debug file, so don't worry about that. And so this is our executable. And to run this, okay, it's a one-step build process. So Rust actually compiles and links and does all of those things together. Okay. So dot slash hello rust.exe and okay, sorry. Hello rust.exe and we should see hello rust. There. Okay. It is as simple as that. However, for more complex, use cases, we don't use the Rust directly right here. Instead, what we do is we use a tool called Cargo. Okay. And it is in Cargo, it is using Cargo that we actually create our projects, right? So, and all the dependency management and all library inclusions and everything is managed by the Cargo build tool. So, what do I do? So, I need to create a new project. So, let me call this Cargo. So, since this is I'm just calling it CEP underscore session underscore 1. So this is our session 1. And I have to say cargo new to create a new project by this name. Okay, so it has created. Now if you see the directory, you will find that CEP underscore session underscore 1 has been created. Right? Okay. So we can go into the directory, CEP session 1. And if I see the directory inside this, see .gitignore file, cargo toml, and then the SRC. And if you want to see the entire see how it looks like, so let's see dot, and you see there is an SRC. Under CEP session 1, you have the SRC folder. So tree is a command to display the tree of all the folders starting from where you want. Okay, right. I have already installed Visual Studio Code with all the required Rust extensions that we need. So in order to invoke code, you don't have to Visual Studio Code. You don't have to use the start button. You can directly start using it from the command prompt itself. So to invoke that, you use code and then you say dot. Because when you load Visual Studio Code, you have to mention which is the project directory. Now, since we are already in the CEP session 1 directory, which is the project directory, so we said dot. Dot means the current directory. So load the current directory into the workspace. So that's what it says. There you go. Okay. So I'm going to close all these notifications. So you see SRC, there is this .gitignore file. Okay, this is used for ignoring everything non-essential stuff into your repository, GitHub repository. And you have the cargo toml file, which is where you actually configure your project. All the project configurations going here. So you will see these configurations come in the form of sections. So this is one section, package. Another section is dependency. So the package, under the package, we are saying what is the name of our project. So there is CEP section 1, what is the version and what is the edition. And see more keys in the definition such as struct out. So you can just click on this and find out all the manifest information. Under the dependency section, right now we don't have any dependencies, so we're going to leave it at that. Later we will start adding dependencies when you want to add external libraries. Okay. At SRC, you will find there is a main.rs already created for you. Okay. So this has already been created, which has a hello world program in there. So this is the boilerplate code that you already have. So how do I run this? Now, two ways. One is you can go back to the command prompt and do it, or what you can do is in the view you can terminal. You can create a new terminal. So this will open up the terminal for you. In the terminal, you'll see you are already in the project folder only. So this is a very good thing that happens with terminal. Now here, in order to run this command, Rust program, see there are two steps to be done. One, you have to build. The other is to run. Okay, so I'll do cargo build. That is finished. Now see, the moment cargo build was done, you see a new folder target was created. At that you have all the Rust information and so on and so forth, and the debug symbols and data and so on and so forth. And okay, and this is your exe file. Okay, this is your exe file under the debug. Now, once you have done the build and there are no errors, you can now say cargo run. When you do cargo run, see what happens. Hello world is displayed. Is it running? It is running the target debug CEP section 1.exe. So project name.exe is the executable that is created. Of course, there is also a shortcut. What I can do is I can delete this target folder. Okay, so the target folder is no longer there. And now, if I do cargo build, again it will be created. However, the shortcut is that you can actually do a cargo run directly. So cargo run directly, automatically it says, hey, there is no build has happened. So first it will see, it will compile it, and then finishing the optimal debug, and then it will start running. In the previous case, when I did cargo run, it has already finished it there, and so there is no compilation happens. Okay, so compilation happens when you do a cargo build. So where compilation happens, and when you do a cargo run, it will simply keep running, no compilation. Whereas here, compilation, if it sees that it has not been compiled, it will compile, and then the target generated, and then it will run the target file. That is the executable file. Okay. Right. So far, so good. Any questions here, please? Questions? So I'll just continue. Right. So a couple of things, some of the things, because we want to go fast and look into actual coding practices, what we will do is I will actually refer you to the rep book. Okay, pretty often in there. Okay. So We've done the hello world and the hello cargo. Okay, right. Now, one of the important things about any language to know is obviously data types. Okay, so data types come in the form of either scalar types or complex types, okay, or compound types. So scalar types are, when you say scalar types, it means they can only hold one value at a time. The variables can only hold one value at a time. So what are the different primary scalar types? You have integers, floating point, numbers, floating point numbers, booleans, and characters. You do have strings, but they are not scalar types. Okay, so they are compound types. So integer types, you have various integer types from starting from 8-bit to 16, 32, 64, and 128-bit. And these can be signed as well as unsigned. So it can be, so if it is signed, you say I8 for an 8-bit integer. U8 means unsigned 8-bit integer, and I16 means 16-bit signed integer, and U16 means unsigned 16-bit integer, and so on and so forth. There is also ARCH, which is architecture specific. This is called as I size and U size. Okay, so signed size and unsigned size. So basically, this size refers to the what to say, the word length of your processor. So if you are using a 64-bit processor, so you will get 64 bits. Arch will be 64 bits. Right. Now, integer literals, when you say in Rust, you can also use either decimals, you can also use hexadecimals directly, you can use octal values, you can use binary values, and you can also use byte values. Byte values are always unsigned, 8-bit integer. Okay. So if you want to use decimals, you can say so 98 underscore 222. So you see, this is 98,222. So let me just show you actually usage in here. So I'm going to delete this or maybe so if you want to create a variable, what do? You use the statement called let by the variable name. Okay, so we say let's say n is signed, and you can just give any value, say 55, and I can just print it out. And you give a placeholder, and you say n. Save this and do a cargo run. It will automatically compile. There are no errors. So see value of n is 55. Okay. However, so if you see here, when I bring the cursor in here, what happens is the compiler actually automatically infers what type it should be. Okay. So, okay. So now I can actually mention, hey, I want this n to be an 8-bit unsigned integer. So I can say U8 like. When you put a after the name, when you put a colon and then you mention the what type it is. So this in Rust is called as. So let me just put it like this. So I have n and let's say let x u8 unsigned int 8, and this is equal to 45. So and I just run this. So okay. So this definition that you're seeing here. Okay. So this is without type information. So what will happen in this case is that this case the compiler will automatically for the type based on the value assigned to the variable. Okay. And whereas here what we are doing is we are giving the type information explicitly. Okay. So this is where we use table definition with type annotation. So in Rust parlance, okay, when you mention, so it U8 is in C, C++, Java, we call them as type specifiers, right? Where in Rust we call them as type annotation. Okay, so you are annotating the basically annotation means to add additional information. Okay, so X saying that hey, X has to be of unsigned integer of 8-bit type. Right. So similarly, I can create Boolean variables. So I can say let B is signed or bool variable is assigned true, and if I print the value, bool variable. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of cough there. So let's run this and see. Okay. Convert the identifier to snake case. Yes. So this is one thing I wanted to show you. Okay. So Rust does not actually, like, this sort of casing. So what Rust wants is that you should use snake case. So instead of defining it like this, okay, right? Okay. So so I'm going to change it to underscore. And now I take argument. Oh, sorry. He also. Comma, yeah. You can see, when you see the error messages, they are quite explicit, and there is no language better at giving you debug information when something goes wrong in a program than Rust. And one of the most tough compiler messages to actually comprehend that I have encountered practically in all these years, all these decades rather, is the Perl compiler. So the kind of output it generates, okay, literally you'll break your head making sense of what it is actually saying. Okay, and it requires quite some experience to get used to what it says and what it actually means in the real world. Okay, right. So now let's run this again and see how it is running. And you see it. Okay. So you have Boolean, but I can actually, let's say if I give say 2 greater than 3, something like this, and I save this, I run this. So it knows that the expression is actually going to result in a Boolean value. Okay. Now, if you want to do a type annotation, you can do that. Okay. So you could do that. So if we go back to our book, so you see for Boolean, okay, for floating point we use F. Okay. For Boolean we use the bool type annotation. Okay. So we put up colon and then bool. So this is the type annotation. And if I put 2 less than 3 and I save this and run it, bool var is true. Right now, if we look at the values also, that you can give values in decimal, hexadecimal, octal, binary, and in byte format also. Okay. So if you want to give hexadecimal, use 0x just like in C, C++, and 0O for octal, 0B for binary, and just B, okay, prefix to the character for a byte. Okay. So let me give you a simple example. So suppose, for instance, okay, I wish to create a variable. So let's say let salary. Okay. Now I want this to be a decimal value, so that is integer. So let's say I32, which is pretty big enough, and I want to give, let's say 1,25,000. Okay. So it is salary, and then if I run this, it's coming as salary. Now, however, we want this to be readable. So what we can do is I can put underscore. I can say, okay, 1,25,000 like this. If I put it like this, okay, and I run this, I still get the value. However, when I'm reading the code, it's very clear. Okay, so to break this numeric literal 1,25,000 into 1 lakh and then 25 and then 1,000, so you could do that by putting up underscore. In fact, it's not like you have to put it here only. If I put like this, and I save this and run it, see what happens. It works. So this makes for better readable. Of course, yes. Now it is not readable, right? So let's remove it and make it more readable. So you can use underscore wherever you want to break that literal. Okay, but the compiler knows what this value is. It will remove this and then remove these underscores and then get the value and then put it over there. Okay, now there is something to be customized. Okay, so let's create a hexadecimal value. So let hex val is fine. Okay. So I can give it as 0x SS C2, something like this, and let's check it out. Okay, so similarly, let opt value. So for opt, we use 0O, and then there's a 2 471. You know that in octal you cannot have digits more than 7, right? 0 to 7. And let binary value assigned. So it's 0B. Okay. So as I showed you here, so it's 0B followed by order. So let's say I want 1100 and 0011. So I can actually, to make it a little readable, I can again put underscore in there and let byte file and then use B, and then you can give any character, like say for instance A, and let's print it out. So to keep it simple, I'm just going to say X octal binary and byte X12 octal and then byte. Okay. And let's run this. Let me put it, oh yeah, this is a mistake I made so often coming from other programming languages. So then X12 65530. It will all be converted to decimal equivalent. Okay. Later on, I will show you how you can actually print it out in the format that you want. So formatted IO will come a little later. Okay. So for now, whatever values are there, their equivalent in decimal is what we are going to see here. So you see, byte file for the letter A is nothing but the ASCII value. ASCII value is 65 in decimal. That is what we are getting. Okay. Any questions, please? You have any questions for me?
Guys, I think we need to make it more interactive. If you are trying to build along with Silva sir, I mean, that's also not a bad idea, because that way, if you are coming across any issue while building, you can straight away ask him. But then if you want to do it later, that also is fine. I mean, I'll just leave that to you, but make the class more interactive, ask questions, then only you will learn. I mean, just being there may not help. So I mean, that's my request.
And I think, do we have a way of sharing this file? Uh, uh, Within the chat, we can't actually, put too many characters in there. So there's a limit there. Okay. Right. For the floating points, again, the same is the case as you would have used with any other programming language. So I will not get into too many details of that, so you can actually read it out for yourself. Okay. Now, if we go back to our Rust book, so here it talks about the functions, comments, and control flow. So variables and mutability is what I want to actually want to show you in there. And of course, please do read upon the numeric operations, plus, minus, multiplication, division, and modulus operator using the percent symbol. Okay, and there are the character types. Now coming to the compound types. Okay, so essentially, compound types are nothing but a collection of values. Okay, that's all there is to it. Scalar types will actually contain only one single value at a time. Compound types can actually store multiple values at a time. You can think of them like arrays. Okay, you can think of them as lists. You can think of them as maps and so on and so. All these are compound because they can actually store multiple values. Okay, so that's why these are also commonly called as collections because they actually hold collection of values. And in Rust we call them as compound types. Okay, so as far as compound types are concerned, in Rust you have two types of basic compound types. These are coming from the core language, not as part of the collections framework that the standard library brings in. This is part of the core language itself. Okay, so tuple type and the array type. Okay, so let's build some tuple and see. So what I'm going to do is I am going to select this entire thing. I'm going to comment it out because I want to use only one main array. Or I could use the other way, which we will see tomorrow when we have multiple files. So today let's work with single file itself. Right. So fn is the keyword to define a function. Main is just like your main function in C, C++, Java, and almost many other programming languages. Right. Now, tuple types. So when you want to create a tuple type, what you essentially do is first understand what is a tuple type. Okay. Tuple is a collection of heterogeneous types. Okay. What does it mean? So let me just show. So let tup is assigned. So what it is, I have a 10, 20, and 5.67. Okay. So I've got two integers. Okay. One floating point value and one Boolean value. That's what I meant. And right. So now if I try to print it out, okay. So integer, integer, float, bool cannot be formatted with the default formatter. Okay. Now this is something that you have to keep in mind. So basically, if you want to use this, so what you need to do is you will have to use format like this. This is for the keyboard formatting. Okay. And I save this and come back up here. So now you can see it's called as debug formatting. And if you see in here, it's actually quite extensive the way it actually explains. So in formatting, you may be able to use this or colon hash question mark for petty print instead. Okay. Note this error originates from the macro $create format argument n1, which comes from the expansion of macro println and so on. Okay. So what it says is that you can also use colon and then hash question mark. I save this. This is called as for petty print. And now it looks like this. So you see in the previous run, we got it on the same line. The next run, so it will actually do a pretty print. Okay, there is a formatter also. Now, what actually goes on is that it's actually a collection of multiple values. Okay, now when you give these values 10, 20, 5, and 6, 7, and false, it automatically, if you see here the first time when we did integer, float, and bool, it actually automatically inferred the types. It has actually inferred the types. You can be, suppose if you want to create a tuple, okay, type annotation, you can say let T2, which is another tuple. Okay. So if you want to be specific, so you can do it like this. Okay. Then put a parenthesis and all the collection types. Okay. I'll say I32 and say bool, float, or say F32 and then I32. And then I can give a value. So suppose if I give 1, 1, the language server is not running, I guess. That's why I'm not getting all the and I'll go to the extension and look for work. Oh, I have not installed it. Rust analyzer. Yes, now it is installed. Oh, that is there in my Linux box. Okay, so now it is installed. Okay. There it is. You should be able to see it. Now you see, immediately I'll get compile warning. Mismatch type, expected bool, found integer. So when you use a type annotation, what happens is you are essentially telling, hey, you know what, I want the tuple, but the sequence of value should be of this order. Okay, the value should be of this type in this order only. Obviously, one is not a fit, so let's take this true. We have an error. So it's a use of float literal. So if you want to give, let's say, for instance, 10.0, okay, for floating literals, what you can do is just put 10 point, and that is enough. Okay, and again in I32, so okay. And here if you see there is a squiggly here, it says this is intentional prefixes underscore and so on and so forth. So it is actually telling you, hey, you are not using this. Basically, it's an unused variable T2. Okay, because we not used it in our code. So if I put this like this, okay, println 2 is, and I put colon question mark. Okay. Then P2. I save this, the error will be gone. Now the compile errors will only go after you rectified and then you save the file. Okay. Right. And now if I go and run this, it is coming as 1, 2, 10.0 and 1. Okay. At times, suppose if I remove this or comment this line, again I'm going to get this error. And in fact, if I run this, I'll get warning. So run and you say, hey, help if this is intentional. So the code does run, but it is showing a warning. Hey, you know what? You do have, an unused variable. Okay. So you have an unused variable. So unused variable C2. So suppose if this is intentional, then in that case, what you can do is if you put an underscore in front of it and save it, the error will be gone. And in fact, you won't see that warning here as well. The warning is all gone. This is how actually you can say that, hey, you know what, I am using some unused variables. Okay. But now if I put this again, I get it. So if you are actually trying to develop something and you want that, hey, I might have unused variables in my code, but because I'm just in the process of building, you can use annotations like this. Okay. So allow unused initial. If you say this like this, now you see, even if you're not used it, you will not get that warning. But again, remember, this is not a good idea to use. Okay. When you're a beginner, this is fine. But as you go on, you should not have allow unused variables annotation, um, inside of your production code at all. No way. You should not have it. Okay. I always keep saying, just because you can does not mean you should. Okay. So that's the rule you should always follow. Because it allows you to do doesn't mean that you have to put that in production code. No, 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 no. There's a reason behind this. When you're developing and maybe building logic and you don't want the warnings to crop up here and there, and you have not yet finished the program, you know that somewhere down the line, the code is actually going to use a certain variable which you declared way up ahead. Okay. Then to avoid those, you can put this up. But then once you move to production, you should remove all these. Okay. Right. Similarly, there is another annotation popularly used by beginner programmers. Allow and then say code. Okay, this is even bigger no. Okay, right? Right? You can use this also. So detect unused exported items and all those kinds of things. Okay, so you should never ever do this. During development, fine, okay, as a beginner, but as you gain experience, you should not use this. It's not meant for people who are experienced and those who don't want to make mistakes. Okay, right. Okay. Any questions, guys? I think you forgot to install the extension Rust and Linux. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So you are right, Puneet. Actually, it's not in this Visual Studio Code. I have everything installed in my Linux box, so I was under the impression that I do have it in the Windows. Okay. Okay. Any questions, guys, please? Okay. So in that case, just continue this. So, Praveen sir, how about a 5 minutes break?
Sorry, we're talking about. No, I think we can take that. Yeah, I think it will be good.
Yeah. So it is 8:14. So 8:20 we will reconvene. Okay.
Yeah.
Dhruv, I'm pausing the recording. You can resume. Okay, fine.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
it's on its
guys.
own.
Yeah, yeah, it's on. I just turned it on. So tuple is used to collect, and it's basically values of different types into one single element. Okay, right. Now, if you want to access individual elements inside of the tuple, so you can say, okay, how do you do that? Say, you can say, so I want to access first element. Let's call this as first, second, third. Fifth. So fourth. So these are the elements, okay, from T2. So in order to access them, you do it like this: T2 dot 0, T2 dot 1, T2 dot 2, and T2 dot 3, like this. So in order to access individual elements, what you do is you say T2 dot followed by the index value, okay, the position. And the position index will always start from the 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay. So if I save this and run this, 1, true, 10, and then 4, right? Okay. So it's coming out the way you want it. That's tuple for you guys. So now question is, where can I put it to use? So let's say, for instance, maybe tuples are kind of a stripped down versions of structures. The only difference between the structures and tuples is that structures have fields with specific names. Tuples don't have names. That is the reason tuple dot and then followed by the index position of the element is what is actually given. If this were a structure, then in that case you would actually use the name of the field. That's the difference. Okay. So when you want a lightweight structure without any symbol information in the form of field name, that's where tuples are actually used. Okay. Right. Now another compound type that we use is the arrays. Okay. Now arrays behave exactly like the way they do in other languages as well. Okay. And so you can create, let's say, let my array is assigned and then simply assign 10, 20, 30, like this. Okay. Now you can see that it's automatically it has detected that it is of type I32 and there are 3 elements in it. So if you want to be explicit, so for instance, I can define this and say, hey, I want this my array to be of type, it's an array. Okay, we put a square bracket, which means array. In the array, you have to give first the data type. So let's say I32, and then how many values you want. Let's say 5, and then you can initialize this. Okay, And if you don't give it like this, then in that case it will automatically import it. I think, oh sorry, not comma, I have to put a semicolon in there. Okay. And save. And we're done. And now you can print it out also. Print line macro. And my array. Now again, remember, we are not using any formatting, so let's see. Okay. See there, 32.5 doesn't implement standard format, but it has automatically given us. So when you have compound types, you cannot use empty curly braces. You have to use that for printing them out. And now if I run this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and want to access the individual element. Okay. So, so let's just change the name. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now here we use the indexing syntax. A0, okay, A1, okay, and A0. Now, one more thing you would notice that the last statement in a block does not need to have an ending, semicolon. Even though you should always have this happen. Anyway, right? So now, if I go back and run this, you see here A0 is 1, A1 is 2. Okay, so this is your array type. Now, the important thing is to define an array, you need to define what type array it is, okay? Which means that an array is a collection of homogeneous types, okay? Means all the values should be of the same type. So if I put, let's say, for instance, here, 2.4, of course, I'm going to get an error because it is exceeding the limit, mismatch type, okay, on floating point. And also the other problem is that even if I put only 2 and save this, okay, you're getting an error because you've got 6 elements. Constructed an array with a fixed size of 5 elements, found one with 6 elements. So now the error is gone. So one is that the types must be the same, and if you have statically allocated the arrays, so now arrays are always statically allocated, which means that during the compile time itself, compiler knows what the size of this type is and actually allocates memory just enough to fit this array in memory. Okay, so the size must be known to the compiler. So array sizes should be known to the compiler. Okay, so that is something that you have to keep in mind. Okay, now let's do some user input. Okay. Now, when you want to do some user input, okay, what you have to do is you have to bring in the IO library. Okay, you have to use stdio. I'll just copy this and put it for sake of saving time. Use stdio. This is the library that is used from the standard library. And if you go on to the IO, it will show you the module is IO. So stdio module contains number of common things you'll need when doing input and output. The most core part of this is read and write trace. Okay, so it will take you to. So suppose you want to open a file open. So this is coming from std file system file, and let's say you want to read some input. So stdio for reads and out, standard input and output. Okay, so you can use IO std in and then do a read line and then pass in the string. Okay, so let's just take this piece of code. Right. So whatever input you do on std, IO std in, okay, say, so basically you're trying to read from the standard input, you are going to read a line, okay, and we are going to read it into this input variable, okay, and this variable should be of the type string, and also it should be mutable. So anyway, so mutability is what we will see a little later. So you have to pass in a mutable reference, okay? And then you can get the output input.trim. So this will basically trim returns a string slice with leading and trailing white space, which is removed. Okay, so you can actually run it directly over here. So if I run this here, okay, what does it say? Okay. The question operator can only be used in a function that returns result or option. Where is it? Oh, okay. Right. So I don't want to do that. Loss is handled. Read the input line. Okay. Result may be an error variant which should be handled. Okay. So Rusty is saying that it has to be handled. So what we need to do is if we put this up in here, okay, and then we have to return. Okay. Type. Okay, so basically what it is saying is that if you're trying to copy this, okay, so you have to return a result type. Okay, so for now I'll just I'll come back to it a little bit. We'll use another example for that. Okay, right. So because I do not want to confuse you a lot. Okay, so so for instance, suppose here we have copy this code and put it over here. So let me say what this is. Right. So we have used the stdio module, and we are defining an array. And to take the index of the array as an input to display the value. So what we are doing is we are creating a string variable, because everything that is read from the standard input is actually a string. What to say, a string variable. It's actually a string. So you will have to take a string as an input, and then you have to turn it into uh, an integer. So how do you do that? So basically, you first do the read line, okay, and so into this index variable. Now this index will change because when you do an input, what will happen? The input that you're given, that will change, right? So obviously this has to be mutable. So we'll come to that point a little later. And so what we are passing into the read line is actually a mutable reference, because the reference will change. and this in turn returns the result, and we say, okay, expect. So with a read line, you use an expect in order to say, okay, you know what, in case if something fails, then you display this error, fail to read line. Okay. Then you take index, okay, of type usize, and then what we do is we take the string index and we trim it, and then we parse it, and then parsing can also fail. Okay. So in that case, we put out a message saying index entered was not a number. And so we get the element by passing in the index into the array, and then we display that. Okay. What is showing an error? Unused result that must be used. Then this result may be another variant. It should be handled. Okay. Right. Okay. So now I'll open up a new terminal and do cargo run. So array index. So you see, we have inside the array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the index will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. So if I give, let's say 3, get the value 4 at index 3. Now if I run this again and I give something like say 10, see what happens. Okay. Please enter the thread main panicked at index out of bounds. The length is 5, but the index is 10. So if you try to access any index, okay, out of the bounds, then in that case you are going to get errors. Okay. This is the standard behavior of the arrays. So you could actually use this std as std in on the IO module, std in function, and get the std in object, and then you read a line from there, and then always remember to read a line into a mutable string reference. Okay, and then also you need to use an expect. If not expect, then you'll have to return a result type from the main function, which we will not go into that those details. Okay, so just remember to put this expect. Okay, after the read line. If you want to avoid that, then in that case you will have to return a result type from the main function. Okay, which is another way of doing it. And at the end of this main function, you will have to return a result. Okay, either okay or something. Either okay or an error. Right? Okay. So now, so this is, so I'm going to actually ran. So this code will be shared with you guys so that later on so you can refer to it. Okay. Right. Meanwhile, at this point, at this juncture, if there is any question. Showing error. Oh, okay. One is what is the error you are getting, Puneet? can you tell me what the error is? So I think Puneet is not responding. Anyway. Right. Any other questions, please, at this point? Use variable hex. Oh, that is fine. This is just a warning. Okay, don't worry about it. That means you have created the variable, but you are not using it anywhere. Okay, like maybe in a frontline macro or something like that. Okay, that's the meaning. So somewhere you have to make use of it. Help it is, and that's all. The same thing. And also remember, the variable name should always start with a smaller case letter. Okay. And if you want to avoid these errors and you're just testing it, just put underscore in front of the names. The errors will go off. Okay. Right. Okay. So that we have seen all these. So let's look at the control flow statements. Okay. You have this if and if else. Okay. You can handle multiple conditions using if else, and you can use if and a let statement also. Okay. And you can use repetition with the loops using the loop statement. Then you have the while loop. So there's a loop and there is a while loop. It's a condition loop, and there is a iterator loop called as the for loop. Okay. These are all the loops available to you. Okay. So let us check this out. So they're actually pretty simple. Okay. So we already know what this if expressions are, right? So basically, if followed by a condition. Now remember, the condition need not be enclosed in a parenthesis like we do in C++ and Java. Okay. So let's that will be. So if number is less than 5, so again remember one of the important things, you do not have to enclose this in parentheses. But again, using parentheses is of no harm, and in fact it's actually a good idea, particularly when you want to change the order of evaluation of the expression. Okay, if you are very well versed with the expression evaluation order, then you can actually omit this. But my suggestion would be not to rely on that, because you see what happens is basically every language has its own way of doing short circuits and also expression evaluation, whether it is right to left or it is left to right, or it is short circuiting from left to right or short circuiting from right to left. All these. So essentially, if you really want to avoid these parentheses, you should really know what is called as an AST, the abstract syntax tree that is generated by the compiler. So if you know deep down to that level, then you can probably use that. But my suggestion is that if you have multiple conditions connected together, it's always a good idea to use parentheses. Okay, even though parentheses are not mandatory, but that will ensure that your conditions are evaluated in the order in which you intend to. Okay, so that's very important. Right. So if the condition is true, then in that case, this if block will be executed. If the condition is false, the else block will be executed. Okay. So this is something that we have seen with almost every programming language. Okay. stdio is not being used, so that is fine. Okay. No, I'm not using it, so I'll just comment this out. Right. Okay. Condition was true. Okay. Right. Now, if you want multiple if else's for multiple conditions, okay, these are just short, very short, what to say, so-called. Another thing is, it's not necessary that you need to have an else. Okay. So let's say I just want to say so. I can actually take this else part out, and I can still run this. Okay. Condition was true. Suppose if I put this as say 30, then the condition is false. But for false condition, there is no else block. So what will happen is there will be no output generated from this code. No output. So when you have something to do only when a condition is met, okay, then in that case you can use just a plain if. But usually you will have scenarios where if the condition is true, you do one thing, one set of things, and when the condition is false, you do another set of things. That's where if else is actually come into play. Okay. So it's not necessary that you need to have. So for instance, if I put this as 30 in here and I run this code, it says condition was false. So when you want multiple if else's, so-called nested if else's also at times. Okay, so you can use that as well. The reason I'm doing this is one is because you will be using this Rust programming language as your book. My role will be to explain all the code. So we'll not waste time on actually typing the code, but instead using the code from that book itself and putting it over here and running it. Okay, that will save us a great deal of time, and we'll have time to actually discuss the actual working logic. So you have this number 6. Now you see, if the number is divisible by 4, that means the remainder modulus comes out to be 0. It says it's divisible by 4. Else, if this condition fails, and in that case, if you're saying if it is divisible by 3, you say divisible by 3. Else, if the number is divisible by 2, you say divisible by 2. Else, it's not divisible by 4, 3, or 2, like this. Okay. So this is a way of writing if else's, multiple if else's. Okay, commonly. Right. Now, people do tend to use a lot of curly braces as well. So again, that's again a matter of personal choice. If you want to do so, frankly speaking, what I normally do is I always use curly braces. Okay. So in my code, you will find more number of curly braces than what you see in here. That's because there are only one single statements in here. So therefore, it's okay. But if you have some complex logic written there, multiple statements, then in that case, it's always a good idea to have, the entire else block in a curly brace, and then the if in the curly braces, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it will become a little cumbersome to read though, but yeah, again, as I said, I like to be more verbose in terms of my logic, so I like it. So number is divisible by 3. Okay. Now something that is not divisible by 4 and not divisible by 3, but only divisible by 10. So let's say, sorry, 2. So I put this as 10. Okay. So it will only be divisible by 2, but not 3 and 4. And again, remember, you should always test your program, okay, with all the test conditions possible. I will put 14 here, and I run this. It's divisible by 4, and if I put this as say 41, it is not divisible by 4, 3, or 2. This is a way to test your code that it is actually going through all the conditions and ensuring that you get the right output for the right input. Okay. there is something a little strange about this if else, okay, which I want to show you. This is also called as the iflet. Okay. What it means is that I want to give say let number assign say 6. And what I can do is I can say let, and what I do is I say okay more than 5. Okay, and I say this is equal to if, and then I can say okay if number greater than 5, and I'll just return a true. I'll return a false. And now I can use print macro to display more than 5. Okay. Okay, more than 5, true, because the value is 6, and if I put this as 3, it's false. Okay, so basically what this is actually the conditional statement that you have in C, C++, and Java, and C# also, right? So you have this condition. So if this condition is true, then return this value. If the condition is false, then return this value. So now inside of the if and else, so these are just the values. These are called as expressions. Okay, don't put semicolon after these. Okay, if you put semicolon after this, then they become statements, not okay. What is a expression? So it's very important for you to understand that. Okay, this is called as the iflet. So basically, you are using if to generate the value based on some condition in a let statement to assign a value to the variable. Okay. Sorry. Now, the if let doesn't need to be so simplistic as this. So you could have something more complicated, like say for instance, okay, I'll say okay, output value. So what we say is that okay, so let output value equal to if it is more than 5, we will double it. Otherwise, if it is not more than 5, that is, it is 5 or less than 5, then in that case, we will triple it. So the output value will be 3 times that. So I can say if number is greater than 5, and I want to, write some code. Okay, so print line say number is greater than 5, output value is double. Okay. The number, something like this, and then we give the expression. So I'll say, okay, so whatever I want to return as the value, I write it as an expression. So I'll say 2 times number. 2 times the number. Times the number. Okay. Else, okay, else is line number is not greater than 5. Output value is equal to number. And then I say 3 times number. Again, remember not to put this semicolon number. Okay. Okay. So then what will happen? So not only it will execute this statement, but also it will return the value 2 times number or 3 times number based upon the value of the number. So what is the number right now? It is 3. So you will get 3 times. So let's check the output value. Output value. One more parenthesis. Okay. I should be getting, what should be the output value? It should be 3 times 3, which is 9, right? So output value is coming out as 9. And if I put this as, let's say 30, then the output value should be 60. That is 2 times the value, right? So I'm getting output value 60. So you can actually write complex if else statement and then return the values. Okay, if the need be. This goes on to show that you could have some complex expression evaluation going on, and ultimately the final value that you want returned as part of the if or the else block, you can do that. Okay. Now remember, if I did that, when you're doing it something like this, okay, let's say number is greater than 5 and you're returning say 1 here and a false here, right? If you say this, I can remember it says expected, okay, I32 expected, and here false, type value bool representing logical false. So basically what happens is that the value that you're returning from these two parts in the if and the else block, they should exactly be the same type. Otherwise, there is no way for the compiler to know which type it has to take, whether in I32 or it should take a Boolean value. Okay. Because at compile time it needs to know beforehand. Therefore, the value or the expression that you're coming up with in the if and the else part, they should be of the same type. That's important. So now there are no errors. So let's just run this and see. Perfect. Okay. Any questions, please? And Dhruv, somebody asked, I think it was Shravan Kumar, sir, we have, where we write an exam, we have an exam at 7 to 9, we didn't get any mail. Shravan, are you there? Shravan Kumar, are you there?
Yes.
What is it that you meant by this statement? Where we write the exam. So you will be given quizzes, access to the quiz, okay? So you can go directly and finish. If you want to know about the quiz, right? Am I right?
Right. I think where can I write an exam?
And that's what it means. Okay. Okay. Now, one little assignment. Can you please show the program of yourself? Okay. Instead of just using this simple single value expression, you can have whole lot of code. That is what I'm actually showing you here. So the condition is that if the value or output value will be, if the number is greater than 5, it will be 2 times the number. If this condition fails, that is it's less than or equal to 5, and in that case you will get 3 times the number. Is it clear? Okay. Now, let me give an example. Sorry, assignment. Okay. Assignment is put numbers, 3 numbers, and display the maximum value. Okay, input 3 numbers and display the maximum value. And you have to use different, you know, uh, also along the same lines. Maximum of 4 numbers. Input by the user. The next session. So, Praveen sir, any inputs before we close for today? I think we are done. So the functions and the loop part we will discuss it in the next session as a quick listen, because we started out late today.
Right. No, I think so. Are you giving some some assignment or few things to do before the next session?
So that's what. So I just put it in the chat. It's an assignment. That is input 3 numbers and display the maximum value. Also along the same line, find the minimum of 4 numbers input by the user. So they will know how to do user input, and also they have to come up with the logic. See, remember, guys, one of the very important things is try to build the logic all by yourself. Don't try to Google and Stack Overflow at this stage, because this is the stage where you are trying to learn how to build logic as well. Okay. Now, most of the times, what happens uh, uh, is that people actually know the language, but they cannot write programs all by themselves, right? So it's absolutely imperative that you actually try to build the logic, even if it goes wrong. Nothing to worry about it. Nobody learns to walk without falling, right? No one has done this in this entire world. So we don't come, born with all the knowledge. We have to acquire it. So here, programming skills are built only by practice, 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 and more practice. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
I think I
essential.
could not have, yeah, I could not have agreed more, because I think once you kind of look at some code, it looks all easy. But when you start writing the code, then you start feeling, you are missing comma here, this logic you forget. So I think once you do these several times, then you kind of, create, build that ability that you can write code from scratch. And that's what is Silvas are saying here.
So it's very important that you actually know this. Okay, so I think Puneet was something. Okay, Puneet, what is the problem here? Okay, let number is 6, more than 5, number is false. Okay. What is the issue, Puneet? Okay, okay, okay. Wait. You are missing the curly brace of the else part, and after that curly brace, ending curly brace, you need to have a semicolon as well. After 3 times number, you have to end the curly brace for the else block and put a semicolon also after that. Do that and see. Working now? Right. So are there any more questions before we close? I think the crowd actually reduced to 14. Anyway, guys,
Yes.
so those of you who stayed with us, yeah, so very thanks to you guys for your patience. Uh, your consistency in being in this all these technical sessions is going to decide whether you will be able to finish the project or not. That's one thing. Secondly, this also means that uh, you know since if you attend all these sessions, you will be eligible for the certificate of completion as well, provided you clear the quizzes with a certain baseline score. Okay.
It looks like we're out of questions and then no more questions. Looks like anything you would like to say, Selva sir, before we conclude? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Okay, looks like Selva sir can't hear me. So, Praveen sir, anything you would want to add before we conclude?
No, I think so. Good, guys. Like Silvas had mentioned, what is important is, persistence here. So, please listen to it, go and do practice, whatever Silva sir has asked you to do. I mean, see, these are all small wins that you are making here, but then believe me, if you are persistent for some time, I mean, it is important for people to kind of attend the whole session. And you know these may look slow when you are doing, but then ultimately these small things only will take you to your ultimate goal. You must have heard of the story of the hare and tortoise, right? I mean, ultimately these skills that you are building, these skills are difficult skills, so they cannot be built in a day. But then you have to be on this journey. So believe me, just be consistent, be have patience and work hard. Believe me, what you are learning here, Rust programming language, is one of the most sought after and difficult languages. So just have patience and just do what Silva sir is telling you. You will be at a different level altogether. Okay, so excellent having all of you here today. Happy learning, happy practicing, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you.
You guys take care, right? And come up with the assignment. I'll see you guys in the next session.
Thank you,
Dhruv,
Praveen
any
sir.
closing remarks, please?
No, that's all. I think it looks like we're on
Yeah.
a good road for a rock solid foundation in Web3 development. So as Abhishek sir said back in the conference, I want to be a Polkadot developer. I think it's taking real good shape. It looks like it. We've been here 2.5 hours today, and for everyone who stuck around for the 2.5 hours, thank you so much for being a part. This is uh, this is going to have a great output towards the end, as Praveen sir mentioned. So stay tuned. We'll have a few more sessions in the coming days. You'll be notified, and I'm pretty sure you know what's next. So see you around the block. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Selva sir, for joining. Thank you, Praveen sir.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you all. Bye bye.